Hi, I want to introduce you to the concept of discerning communication. I want to look at what it is, what are its benefits, how best to use it, and some of its misuses. I'm Trevor Smith, and I'm with the Success with People Academy. The Success with People Academy is recognized by the Society for Human Resource Management, SHRM, to offer professional development credits that may be applied to their SHRM CP and SHRM SCP certifications. Our in-demand certifications include our Certified Behavioral Coach Award and our 3D Team Leader certification, both offering SHRM professional development credits. We incorporate discerning communication as a central pillar in our leadership training. The real value of discerning communication is reinforced by a study sponsored by Carnegie Foundation and conducted by Stanford and Harvard universities. They found that interpersonal skills accounted for 85% of what was deemed to be success, with technical competencies accounting for only 15%. What that means is that people skills trumps technical competencies at all times. Here's a practical demonstration of the difference that discerning communication makes. On the left is the waiting room of a doctor who actually gets people better. He diagnoses well, finds answers, and the patient actually gets better. But look at his waiting room. On the right is a doctor who is more has more of a relationship with his patients. He makes them feel good about themselves. He listens to their concerns, and he does provide medication. And yes, they do in fact get better, but his focus is on that relationship, is on that discourse with them. Look at his waiting room. Discerning communication makes a difference. The discerning communication concept is actually built upon the DISC framework: dominance, inducement, steadiness, and conscientiousness. The concept actually goes back to Carl Jung, who said that if we look at how people cope with life over the ages, we can classify their behaviors into 4 distinct groups. These are not 4 groups of people, but 4 classifications of how we respond, 4 strategies that we use, 4 approaches that we take. I like to look at it as 4 different toolkits that we have and that we use to cope with life. And all of us at some point in time pull tools from one or the other of the 4 toolkits, but we tend to have preferences for one or more. So how it works, we have here on the right, outgoing, and then another approach is to be more reserved. At the top we have a task orientation, and at the bottom people orientation. And where outgoing meets task, that's the red area, that's dominance. Where outgoing meets people, that's the yellow area, that's inducement. Where people meets reserved, that's the green area, steadiness. And where reserved meets task, that's the blue area, that's conscientiousness. So we have dominance, inducement, some people call it influence, steadiness, and conscientiousness. Those are the 4 basic toolkits that we have to cope with life. And then we have other axes that we can look at. At the top, in the red zone, there is a tendency to be more direct. At the bottom, in the green zone, there's a tendency to be more indirect. Over here, on the right, in the yellow zone, there's a tendency to be more open, whereas in the blue area, there's a tendency to be more cautious. That gives us an indication of the approaches that we take as we navigate through life. The great thing about the DISC framework and discerning communication is how easy it is to apply it. It's virtually like the capacity that we have to appreciate and to recognize the favorite colors of those around us. And the beauty is that we can actually pick out tools just as readily as we can change the color of our wardrobe. So the DISC framework allows us to navigate, to relate under different circumstances by being able to adapt, change our language, and speak what we call the language of behaviors. That enhances communication and makes it easier for us to hear people speak in a language with which we are comfortable, and for us to adapt to speak to them in the behavioral language with which they are comfortable. Relating to others can be a challenge. Sometimes it is as if we're speaking Chinese to someone who only speaks Russian. That's the advantage of discerning communication mastery, because we learn how to identify how others want to be spoken to, related to, and to be able to adjust our communication strategies so that they feel more comfortable. That's the advantage of discerning communication. That's the goal. The goal is for us to learn and master a language of behaviors that's universal, so that we are able to identify how to communicate more effectively with others, and for them to be able to do the same, and so that we will basically be both speaking the same behavioral language and become more comfortable in the communication between us. Here is feedback from an experienced senior manager of the Bank of Jamaica, the Central Bank of Jamaica, Livingston Morrison. He says, I have been involved in executive management for the better part of 20 years with more than my fair share of success. The DISC framework has changed my perspective on management, leadership, followership, and human interaction forever. That's a statement from a highly experienced executive. The DISC framework and discerning communication works. It makes a difference in the workplace and in your personal life. So where are we in the process? Well, we already know that people are complex. We already know that it's not possible to always predict with certainty how someone will behave. We do know, however, that we can in fact observe behaviors as they occur. It is on that basis that Carl Jung came up with the concept that if we look at behaviors over time and how people respond to life's unfolding events, we can classify their responses into 4 different groups. These are not 4 types of people. These are 4 different approaches, 4 toolkits that we use to cope with life. And those classifications, the 4 basic toolkits, are dominance, inducement, steadiness, and conscientiousness. We also know that the behaviors are not wed to an individual, so we need not go around putting labels on individuals and saying you are D, or you are influence, or you are steadiness, or you are conscientiousness, because we know that we can in fact change our behaviors in the same way that we change our wardrobe. So critically, what is required is for us to learn to identify when someone is using one of these 4 different approaches. when somebody uses a particular tool, we should be able to recognize what tool that is and to respond appropriately. That is the key. If we can learn how to recognize, identify what strategies are being used, what approaches are being used, and to respond appropriately, then our interpersonal relations are going to be improved, and we're going to be getting along better with others, and we're going to be a lot more successful. We need then to separate the behavior from the person and to recognize that our people skills far outweigh our technical competence in terms of achieving our goals. DISCerning communication, with its insights, principles, and strategies, provide one of the key pillars on which the 3D Leader certification, leading difficult, dominant, and diverse populations, is built. The 3D Leader certification is accredited by SHRM and offers 16 professional development credits for the SHRM CP or SHRM SCP certifications. This is the first accreditation that is specifically designed to address the vexed issue of leading difficult and dominant personalities. The program requires 18 facilitator-led interactive hours of leadership training, which can be accessed at your convenience. You also have access to 12 months of online courseware, as well as 12 months of email consultation. There is a large library of support materials, and you have access to an exclusive online community where you can learn, mingle, and connect. Contact us now at info@swpacademy.com. swpacademy.com. Thank you.